All right, guys, what's up? How's it going? So, I am joined here by a very special guest, Sean Marginet from mmwgear.com. Good friend of mine, fellow CNC guy, engineer, all the above. Sean, go ahead and introduce yourself for everybody.
Hello, hello. Yeah, my name is Sean Marginet. I am the owner at Marginet Metalworks. It's a little business that I started in 2018 up in Canada. It's something that is very much a passion project, and I I love firearms. I love the industry. I love manufacturing, and it's just something that it's really grabbed my attention, and I just love shooting and I love making things.
That's awesome. So, we got Flying Rich here. We have John H., Mr. MC. We have
Canadian, yes,
Sean.
I am
We
Canadian.
have and Michael Dunn are all here. So we are, Sean is based out of Canada, but he does ship to the United States. Um, so going off that, how hard is it for you to import into the United States like that with parts and accessories?
Thankfully, it's not too difficult, seeing as what I manufacture is not directly a component of a firearm, it's an accessory to a firearm. There's less loopholes that I have to jump through in order to ship them. So I just basically have to do an export certificate and just verify the HS code, which is just a code for, I guess, the border if they so choose to grab the package and charge taxes on it. And after that, really, it's just as long as I mark it appropriately and ship it off, I've had zero issues.
Nice. So that's cool to know. So how did you get started with doing what you do with parts and accessories?
Yeah. Well, pretty much I was in information technology for a decade and I was just getting tired of that career. And so I up and left and I went back to school to become a machinist. That was back in 2015. Um, at which point I went through a 1 year program. And I've had a lot of mechanical aptitude all my life. I've done a lot of things, electronics, manufacturing, other things like that, but never as a trade, or sorry, rather a career. And so back in 2015, I changed careers and I happened to get a job in Winnipeg here. I'm located in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And that was at PGW Defense. PGW Defense makes the C-14 Timberwolf, or formerly made the C-14 Timberwolf for the Canadian military, as well as other different firearms, 3.3 at Lapua, 308, and such. So I got my start in the firearm industry there at PGW Defense, at which point I got hooked. I've been shooting for over 20 years, but I just got hooked into the industry and the community and just going to matches. And I just wanted to start my own little business. So that's that came to that would be 2018 is the first products that I started manufacturing. And really, it's honestly, it didn't start out as much. I made a couple reloading trays and nothing too fancy. I was just looking for organizational tools for my shop. I started into reloading, my favorite caliber, which was we'll get to that, I guess. But I started making reloading trays and different accessories for my reloading setup. And then from there, I was like, you know what, this could actually be something. And so I created a business and got my name and created a logo, created a website, and I just started from there. And honestly, like it's it's pretty it's pretty crazy because all the stuff I've done, like from initial design concept to manufacturing, the only thing really along the lines that I don't do in my product is the anodizing. And so marketing, customer service, the website, all that stuff, it lands on my shoulders. So it's quite a bit.
Gotcha. Yeah, and guys, Sean's on Facebook. That's where him and I actually ran into each other. And you message him on Facebook. It might take him a couple hours to reply, but he's always right there, ready to reply. He's helped me a ton with questions that I've had, and things of that nature. So customer service is right there with him on it, and
I appreciate that.
super easy dude to ask questions to and things like that. So your family owned or independently owned, family owned, operated. Um, how does that play into the quality of your product? Um, on the end consumer side and also on your side.
Yeah. Well, pretty much all the products that I make initially come from a need for myself. So something like my Arca M-Lock clamp, I didn't find anything on the market. I had a drawer full of M-Lock accessories and I had nothing to put it on, but I wanted to convert all my rifles over to Arca. And so a lot of those just really came from a need for myself. And I'm I'm very particular about things, I'll say. Every little chamfer, every little edge on each part and product, I go through and I run my hand over it and I make sure that it's not sharp, that it looks aesthetically pleasing, that it'll glide over your rifle with ease. And so a lot of the products that I manufacture, even from a simple Picatinny rail, I look over that and I try and deburr it and chamfer it ahead of time so that there's little to no sharp edges and snag points so that an end user just doesn't have to worry about those sorts of things.
John says you're the original one man band. Um, so do you own your own CNC machine, and what type of CNC are you doing? Are you doing like tool and die for super small precise cuts, or is it more like a laser cut CNC or things of that nature?
Hmm. So I actually don't own my own machine yet. That's one of the biggest things being this one man band. I'm trying to build up enough equity so that I can rebuild my garage and then put a machine in there eventually. I finally just broke even. Every single dollar came out of my pocket, out of my full-time employer. And they were nice enough to actually let me rent machine time from them. So that's how I manufacture a lot of my parts is I use CNC mills primarily, and I rent machine time. So all my product development from initial prototype stage to production has been just on rented machine time. That being said, I've started reaching out to a local buddy. He has a machine and he's starting to do some part manufacturing for me so that I can offload some of the manufacturing process so that I can focus on development of new products. So that will certainly free up a little bit of my time.
So of all your accessories you make, and you make a lot, and they're all just so beautifully manufactured. What's your favorite? Like, which one of yours is your favorite type of product that you make? And David is asking metalwork, what kind? Um, so Sean makes rifle accessories and weights and stuff of that nature. And he could probably go into a little more detail of what kind of metalwork it is.
Yeah, primarily I work with aluminum. A lot of the accessories I manufacture are made out of 6061 aluminum, and they're type 3, class 2 hard coat anodized. That being said, my favorite accessory would have to be this one right here. This is my Arca M-Lock clamp. So essentially it's just a clamp that you can put on your Arca rail and put any M-Lock accessory on. Now, I had a bunch of bipod studs, pick rails, all sorts of things, and I just found that I wanted to slap my bipod on my Arca rail, but I didn't have an easy way to do that. So I ended up designing this clamp and just put an M-Lock slot on it, and it's become it, it's ridiculous the versatility of this little clamp. And I've also this is the sixth iteration of the clamp. Every time, going back to the quality, every time I go through a production run of my parts, I go back over the part and I look over it and I try and find something that I could maybe improve on it, whether it be aesthetics or just weight or something, maybe a better material, or even just something make it easier for the anodizer. So this one has seen a few revisions, and the latest revision has increased the versatility even further. So I actually put a little slot down the center of the
Mhm.
clamp, and you can just take 1-inch webbing. I actually designed this little shooting bag, and because you see a lot of people now, um, Area 419, Gray Ops, other such manufacturers, they make these bag plates and they're fantastic, but they're very big and bulky. So now pretty much just take this, you just slap a bag on it. I designed a 3x3.5 bag, and now this little tiny bag is perfect for barricades, and you can get inside of a ladder, get inside any tight stage, and it's just a really compact solution to just have something to rest your rifle on.
See, I've got the Area 419 plate rider bag. I'm glad you mentioned them. And it's so big, it's so heavy, and it's awkward. And you throw it in my range bag that I take to PRS matches, NRL matches, and it already weighs 50 pounds. Now I add a 5 pound plate in there. It's like, here goes a little more weight.
Yeah.
Um,
There's something to be said about that weight and that big surface area, but it depends on what sort of barricade you're approaching. Sometimes you may not have that room to get a larger plate like that in there.
yeah, like some of the latter stages that um, it'll it gets really tight in there, and a lot of the times I'll throw my bag off mid stage because I can't get my rifle out fast enough, and I'll go in with a bare chassis on the ladder, which is really rough on your Cerakote or finish or anything.
Yeah.
So, um, so that's kind of a good question. Do your products work on gas rifles, or are they kind of designed around strictly the chassis style bolt action?
I would say they definitely do. I make a lot of M-LOK accessories as well. I have my license from Magpul, so that's kind of how this started. Is I got my license. It's just a free license anybody can get as long as you fill out the documentation and you have a business. But from there, I started designing M-LOK accessories. So I do, as long as you have M-LOK on your rifle, it will work. I make QD sling mounts. I actually make a direct mount Harris adapter, so it replaces that swivel plate for the Harris bipods, because actually in a match, I was going through a tire stack stage and my bipod was getting progressively looser and looser and looser as I moved through with this traditional style bipod stud. So I designed this adapter to replace that. And so there's a lot of things that will work as well. I do have custom ARCA rails that will integrate with an M-LOK handguard so that you can add ARCA to your existing M-LOK platform.
Gotcha. That was something I was kind of wanting to ask you questions about. So your little Arca, the small pieces that you have that kind of integrate together like a puzzle piece, how
Mhm.
did you come up with the design on that? What prompted that design?
That one was just kind of a silly idea, honestly. I just wanted a small ARCA section, 1.5 inches to 1.5 to 2 inches, and then I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. And I made it, but then I'm like, I think this can be better. What about if I make it so it's kind of a puzzle, and then you can have a 3 inch or a 6 inch or a 9 inch or whatever you may want. And it's it's like, honestly, those haven't sold the greatest, because some of the things I make 20 of them, and I'm like, test the waters, give it a shot. It's a crazy idea. See if people like it. And that one, I've had a few people. The people that bought them, they're like, "This is amazing." But most people are like, why don't I just get a longer rail? And I'm like, why don't you? Like, go right ahead. But it's just nice for if you say you want to put it on a tripod or something like back there. I mean, that's a full length chassis, the MDT ACC, but you could always just put it on, say, your AR or something. Put a little M-LOK section of ARCA on there, then you can put it on your tripod. So it's a nice little thing, but then you can extend it if you really wanted to.
So your Arca accessories. So I have the Area 419 chassis on this rifle, their OG chassis, where it's got the grooves cut in it for the
Mm.
Arca
The
plates.
ARCA lock.
Now, does your Arca accessories, do you have the spots cut for the grooves, or are you able to do those?
Uh,
Do you make what I'm
I
saying?
can, yeah, I'm familiar with Area 419 setup with I think they call it Arca Lock.
Yeah.
There's a few different manufacturers that utilize different locking systems. Actually, Really Right Stuff recently, probably about 6 months ago or so, they released a pin locking system as well. But with that, so far, none of my platforms integrate those Arca locks. I don't know if I need to get licensing from them. I don't want to step on their toes or anything, so I haven't really got into that, because there are certain things that you can't actually put onto your designs because they are patented, or they have some sort of thing behind it that I don't want to get in any trouble. And I also don't want to step on anybody's toes. Like, honestly, I'm up in Canada, but Area 419, oh, like I kind of have a dream of one day being like them, like as big as them. I'm just one guy, but I'm like, they're amazing at what they do. And just from my perspective, it's really something I aspire to. So I'm like, they got their market there, and I don't want to step on that.
Well, see, they started out a lot like how you did. So they're not too far from me. And I know all the guys from Area 419 and the owners. And same with Gray Ops CNC. I know all those guys.
Yeah, those guys
They're,
are awesome too.
and he's a one man show. Gray
Oh,
Ops
Grapes
CNC is
is
a
as
one
well?
man show.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. I love the
And
stuff he's doing too. There's a lot more coming up here in Canada too, and it's
and
it's very, very well made.
and from the engineering side, some of it is just so beautiful. And even with your stuff, like your stuff is beautiful. But I've I've got one that is kind of a touchy question, but it's one that I want an answer to because I really want to know. Um, why did you use brass rifle weights? Brass is such a soft metal.
Yeah. Well, as they are weights, it doesn't need to be super durable, in my opinion, at least. Um, but really, there's three top reasons that I chose brass. So the material density, machinability, and aesthetics. So material density, you're looking at iron and steel. I think it's 7.8 grams per centimeter cubed, whereas brass is 8.5 grams per centimeter cubed. So it's a lot denser material. So you can get a smaller package and heavier weight. From there, machinability. Oh, like working with brass, some people hate it. I personally love it. The chips that come off that thing, it's very different than working with a lot of materials. And
Mhm.
just the way it machines beautifully, comes out so nice. And then with the aesthetics, there's just I've been I've been very much black and green. All my firearms are black and green throughout. And then I put a little bit of brass on some of my rifles, and I'm like, ooh, with that black and green. And short story long, I ended up titanium nitriding my bolt. I got a gold trigger on my PGW Coyote to match the aesthetics of the brass weights, and just little pops of gold on there, and it looks really classy.
See, I love the brass weights. I think they're so beautiful. I run the MDT weights. They sent those out to me
Mhm.
about a year ago, right before um, Summer Nationals. And I've been running them ever since. And I've hit them up against rocks and they've taken an abuse and they haven't got
Mhm.
burned or anything.
Yeah,
And
that's a fair point. If you do take a lot of abuse, you'll probably see some dings. And at the end of the day, too, like I don't coat them with anything, so they will tarnish over time. I've had some on my rifles for over a year now, and they've barely tarnished. But it's I do also take care of them, and I use a little bit of barkeeper's friend on them, give them a little polish every now and then when I clean my rifles. So I think if you were to use and abuse them, they'd certainly get a little dinged up. Um, but for me, it's kind of just a buffer between my rifle.
gotcha. Now do you physically buff yours too on the end machining section, or how do you
So
kind of go about it?
actually, with those brass weights, that's machine finish, and then I really just take barkeeper's friend after the fact, just to give it a little bit of just a little bit of sheen after, and just take off some of the tarnish from the coolant that we use. And really, I just primarily leave it the machine finish, because I just, as long as my speeds and feeds are good, it's gonna be a really nice finish. And so there, you can, like, it'll look fantastic. Like, I've polished one set, and oh, it was so shiny and so beautiful, but it's like it's almost too much.
Now, could you like clear anodize them and make them tougher, or is brass too malleable for that?
Could certainly clear coat them. There's a lot of brass that's been clear coated, as well. Actually, my anodizer reached out because they're like, we could do gold plating. So they actually do a nickel coat first, and then they gold
Mm.
plate it over top, because gold doesn't tarnish like brass does. So it's just it would stay beautiful and shiny. But I'm like, I don't know if people want to spend an extra $20 to $40 just to have a little bit of gold on the outside, but it already looked kind of like gold. So I'm like, I'm good enough there. But it's a nice idea that I'm really just seeing what the tarnish is like over time, and I haven't noticed anything crazy. So I think some people would like a clear coat so that it doesn't tarnish. But yeah, at the moment I don't do that.
So David's got a question.
Hmm.
How does
I saw
a
that
how does a
about the
M-lock
M-lock.
work? He understands how the rails work. So it's just like any other M-lock accessory, I'm assuming it attaches the
Absolutely.
same way.
Yeah, so very much like a standard M-lock handguard. So the M-lock slots are uh, so this is a full length M-lock slot there, and this is a half size M-lock slot. So essentially, any M-lock accessory with its standard T-nuts, it'll cam over. It cams over exactly like you were putting it on a rail.
Gotcha. I hope that answers your question, David. Um, if not, you can chime back and we can
Yeah,
try to
if
answer
you're
it better.
familiar with the standard M-lock T-nuts, it works exactly the same. Just goes in, the T-nut fits in the slot, cams over. As you tighten the screw, it locks in.
So John's got a movie reference. Um, Chicks dig scars everywhere. Mark scratches tells a story. That's that's a accurate statement.
Yep.
Um, Michael Dunn was going and looking at your reloading trays.
Oh, thank you.
Dude, you've got some great work over there. I'm so impressed by, and every time I see you do something new, it's like, man, how does his mind come up with that? But it's super cool to sit there and see it.
Yeah, like
Um,
the reloading tray, that one has evolved as well over time. Initially, I just made a reloading tray out of just solid aluminum. I sold them raw. I would sometimes tumble them or maybe give them a little bit of a polish. But then I decided, I'm like, what if I just take the whole reloading tray blank, anodize the whole thing, and then I cut the pockets after, so you have a nice contrast of the aluminum and then the nice Type 3 hard coat anodizing. And then, of course, if you engrave that, it pops very nicely. You can really see that engraving well.
yeah, I've been wanting to maybe contact you about doing some custom engraving on some reloading trays, but I do so many oddball calibers,
Hmm.
like seven Psalm.
You'll start to have
Um,
a stack of trays.
yeah, and it's like, man, that adds up fast, especially on
Yeah.
weight and shipping, and it's like, ooh.
Yeah, that
So,
was a fun project, but yeah.
so are you offering them in other calibers, or is it generally just like standard calibers? So your 223 parent case, um, or is it in like your 308 standard case, or are you doing hybrid cases too, like your 338 edges or your seven Psalms or seven Nosler, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the offerings on the site, I think I have 6 or 7 standard offerings on the site. So 223, 308, 338, 416 JTAC, like sort of those case head families. And then from there, I can always do custom sizing as well. Because actually, right now, as it stands, being a one man show, I don't really have the resources to stock all these. So I actually have anodized blanks. And then as soon as somebody orders them, I just cut whatever size they want and then engrave whatever they want on there. So I hope to be able to have 10, 20, 50 of them in stock at some point. But right now it's as somebody orders a reloading tray, I just machine it up and send it out.
Yeah, and I mean that's a lot of warehouse space that you have to have, whether it's in your personal
Mhm.
home or anything
Yeah.
like that, where you've
Yeah.
got to
This is
store.
my personal home, and that's like a product display. Like I started making a product display in my basement because I'm like, I have too much stuff and I have products and I need to do something. Like my whole cold storage is taking up my boxes and other stuff. And so I definitely need more space.
So is there anything new and exciting that we can expect into this year, 2023, that you haven't
Yeah.
really released? You've given like
Yeah.
teaser pictures of or
I've
something
given
like
a
that?
little teaser here right now, actually, that shooting bag that I mentioned. So
Hmm.
that new slot that I machined into that clamp, that's actually been out in the market since the beginning of this year. And I had the idea a while ago to actually bring that bag to the market. So this little small bag, but as well, speaking of those bag plates, I designed my own bag plate. So this is a 3x6 bag plate with a small shooting bag on it. So the bag plate is actually M-LOK as well. So you can direct attach it to an M-LOK handguard. You can use standard pull through 1-inch webbing. You can use area 419. There's that brassiere clamp. There's all sorts of different types of bag clamps that will work with this plate. And pretty much it's just going to be an additional plate that you can put on the Arca clamp or your rifle. And so it's kind of be an in-between. So this will be the tiny one for very small stages. This will be a little bit bigger for some other barricades such as tank traps and whatnot. And then you'll have your larger platforms like the Gray Ops Area 419. So I'm not really going to make a large one because I think they already did a fantastic job of those. So I kind of have a small and a medium.
See, I like that medium-sized one. When you pulled that up, I was like, this guy, he's hiding out on us. I like that medium. Now, what bag
Yeah.
is on there? Is that the Red Tactical?
No, that's actually I've been working with a small little bag maker in Canada up here, Boss Gear. That's his design for that, and I actually have my own prototype bag that I made as well. So I'm just a lot of the stuff I actually like. Even this little bag, I made this one myself. So I ended up buying a sewing machine end of last year, and I'm like, I'm gonna make shooting bags because that's my next thing. And so I started designing some shooting bags. I got a bunch of 500 and 1000D Cordura, and I just started designing some to work with my platforms. And then I started working with a different bag maker just to offload some of the soft goods manufacturing.
Gotcha. So you're doing like the prototype and saying, hey, this is what I want to do. Can you make it happen? And how can you make it better type thing? Or is it
Yeah,
more of this is my
yeah,
design set in stone?
and yeah. I want to work with them because myself, I sewed, but I haven't sewed really since I was back in like cadets or something. Like I haven't done it in over 20 years. And then I just picked up a sewing machine just to make a couple prototypes. And I know bag manufacturers have a lot of better ways to make them. So
Mhm.
I just kind of was like, here's the initial idea. What do you think you can do better? And so I've had them come back to me, and there's some improvements for sure to the bag design. And yeah, just trying to make the best possible bag. And I'm like, I look at all these different price points as well, because up here in Canada, a lot of stuff from all these manufacturers in the US, it comes in import fees, shipping, duties, taxes, all these things. So we get a lot of even Armageddon gear, like fantastic bags, Game Changer, all those Warhorse Development, like all these big bag manufacturers, they come up here, but they're marked up quite a bit because of the import fees and all that. So I'm just
Gotcha.
trying to make something that's a little bit more economical here, and so that we don't have to go to the States in order to grab some of this stuff. But again, I'm not trying to fill all voids because I can only do so much.
So speaking of like the charges, so I've got the Armageddon gear medium wax, which here in the United States it's $100 bag no matter what.
Mhm.
100 US dollar bag. I don't know what that translates to Canadian wise. Um, but what would that run up there, either Canadian or American?
I think we're looking at probably about 175 Canadian. Um, so it's really it's not huge difference, I guess, probably about 50-ish, because $100 US is probably closer to 125 Canadian. So we're
Mhm.
looking at about a $50 disparity between that. So it's not huge, but if we can get something local, it's certainly a bit of a cost savings. But at the same time, there's a lot of dealers within Canada that are bringing that stuff up. So that price point is coming down. So I certainly have something to compete with there.
So David's got another question here. What type of firearms are you asking, David? What type of firearms have M-LOK sections on them? Because really any type firearm now you can put basically M-LOK on it, um, or I don't really understand your question because there's bolt action, lever action, and gas rifles that all have M-lock sections on them. Um, so his parts are cross compatible with all M-lock, whether it's
Yeah.
Magpul or Knights Armament.
Yeah,
M-lock
Magpul
is M-lock.
released M-lock. It's quite a few years ago, probably well over a decade now. And so ever since they released it, of course, Keymod, M-lock and Keymod are very much, at the time, they were kind of competing interfaces. And Keymod is still around, but not as prevalent as M-lock. And so I kind of see that M-lock, at least around here, has really picked up pace. And so that's kind of the platform that I decided to design things for.
See, I have one Keymod rifle, and I've had it for years now, and I can't find, even when Keymod was still relevant back then, I
Yeah.
still couldn't find.
There's a good reason for that. I'm pretty sure because if my memory serves me correct, Magpul was a free license that you just had to get from them, whereas Keymod, you actually had to go through some hoops, and I think you had to maybe buy the license or something. I think they changed it since, but I think that's initially why, and also just really, honestly, marketing. Magpul's fantastic at marketing. That, like, if you're looking for marketing lessons, look at Magpul.
Yeah. So Michael was asking, shipping to the United States, is it allowed? And yes, that is. You have your export permits and all that stuff. I'm, I think you have. I don't know if you even have to have export permits.
Yeah, you don't have to have specific export permits. Just when you go to export something, say when I go to ship a part to the US, all I have to do is mark it appropriately. Just to go through the export. If it's over a certain value, I have to go through the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade. But if it's just under, I think it's under $500, then as long as I just document it properly, then it's no problem. It's actually very much like um, of course, the U.S. has the ITAR, and so we fall within that too. Whenever we want to buy something, say a trigger, we're not really allowed to buy that. We have to go through an authorized dealer. But say a bolt or something, that actually you can ship up as long as it's under a certain value. So it's very much the same. Like I order stuff through Brownells, and they just go through the export process very much like I do, and they just ship it up here.
So that was going to be one of my other questions: is what type of limitations do you have to hop through being in Canada? Because today's y'all's Independence Day, so
Mhm.
much like ours is Monday, y'all's is today, which is Happy Canadian Day.
Thank you.
Um, what limitations do you have? Because we see on the news the stuff that Trudeau is doing,
Oh yeah.
but and people just assume you're in Canada, you can't own firearms, but you can own firearms in Canada. There's just restrictions, and what difference is that between there and the United States?
Hmm. So uh, I kind of attribute Canada's kind of like California in a lot of ways. We have magazine restrictions, like limits on magazines. We don't have things like that pistol grip, um, where you have to have specific pistol grips or something, or the bullet button or whatever. But my accessories, thankfully, don't fall within a lot of that because they're not direct firearm components. So I can kind of skirt a lot of that. Not really skirt it. I don't even have to skirt any of that because it's not a firearm component. It's just an accessory to said firearm. So certain countries do have a problem with that. U.S. not being one of them. But in my full time job, PGW, we actually deal with firearms, and I don't have to deal with that. But seeing what they have to deal with, it is ridiculous. There's a lot of government hoops that they have to jump through, import export, for any of the different products. But thankfully, because I don't touch firearms, that's not so much on in my court.
Gotcha. Um, I didn't know what all went into that. If you had to have a special type license to make parts like how you are, or anything like
For
that.
Yeah, if I were to make components of a firearm, and then I would require a business firearms license as well. If I actually do custom work on my own personal guns, and I'm thinking about doing that as well, because I love modding guns and doing some custom work and Cerakote. And whatnot. And so for that, I would need a business firearms license in order to take in another person's firearm. But if I were to just do it on my own, that's no problem.
Okay. I didn't know. So do you have to be like members of gun clubs there to own firearms, or is it?
Not all firearms. So the way it works here is we kind of have three categories, but Trudeau kind of oh man, that whole thing. He kind of tried to introduce like four and five, but essentially the way it works is there's non-restricted, restricted, and prohibited. So non-restricted is say your standard bolt gun, 1022, things like that. And those you require a license, but you don't require anything really other than having a license. Restricted firearms, such as pistols, like handguns, certain short-barreled rifles, you need to be a member at a range and as well have your restricted portion of your membership. So for pistols, we're not just allowed to go out and shoot them in a bush. We have to go to a designated range in order to shoot those handguns. And but say our non-restricted rifle, bolt gun, even say a Ruger PCC, the Ruger PC carbine in 9 mil, you can take that out in the bush because that's non-restricted, but you can't take your pistol. It's like the same caliber, but it's just like the laws are, it's kind of nonsense. And we have magazine limits. So things like handguns, we have 10 round limits in handguns. There's certain seasons, such as hunting seasons. Of course, you can only have like say 2 shot shells in there. As well, Trudeau's trying to implement a 5 round cap for every single firearm in existence. So of course they don't fully understand firearms, and they're because they haven't been like, oh, what about revolvers? Oh, what about tube fed guns? Oh, what about like all these different guns? Like, what are you going to do for all these? And so with this whole recent stuff, Bill C-21, I don't want to get into the whole politics of that crap, but essentially he's trying to, what's happening now is there's a national handgun freeze. So no more purchasing, no more transferring. No, yeah, just generally the market for handguns is going to be shut down. And so I scrambled and bought a couple handguns quickly because I don't know if, honestly, the way it's looking is it might be fall and nobody will ever be able to buy another handgun again in Canada, pending the next political party. But there's just a lot of things. Really, it feels to me that the Liberals just really want to take away guns from everybody. And it's unfortunate because this is my hobby, my passion. This is what I want to do. And I never thought I'd be in this deep living in Canada. I thought I'd have to move to the States, but I am. And now this is my livelihood, and my own government kind of, they want to take it away from me. And it's really unfortunate because I'm just a competitive shooter. I'm just a guy making some cool stuff that I think other people will benefit from. And I just want to enjoy my hobby and just make some cool things. But yeah.
So have you considered ever moving to the United States? Or I know that sounds real easy and people don't realize I come from an immigrant family also, and they didn't necessarily come here the legal way when they came here, but now everybody's legal and things like that. But
Mhm.
um when have you ever thought about just trying to come to the United States to grow your business and expand it and open up the doors to, like, we have a Second Amendment and
Oh
then we
yeah.
have the ATF and things like that.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. That's it's something that is coming more and more to mind. There are some massive companies, MDT, Modular Driven Technologies. They're in BC,
Mhm.
so that's certainly one option. I've reached out to them, and they pretty much want me, if I go to work for them, they want me to relocate over there. But I just want to do my business because I love what I'm doing, and the states, honestly, like I was looking into the numbers, so in Canada, I think there's 2.3 million firearm license holders. In
Mhm.
2020 in the US, I think there was over 5 million new firearm owners. And that's over double what Canada has in just at all. And it's like, so the market share is so much bigger in the US that really, if the Canadian government keeps going the way they're going, it may only make sense for me to do that. Or really, like, I have other hobbies that I'm interested in as well. Maybe not as much as firearms and manufacturing, but there's certainly things that I can pivot to with manufacturing. But really, this is where my heart is. So I'd love to continue to do this, but I'm just not sure what the future holds yet. I'm really hoping I can stay here because my family's here too. But we'll have to. Only time will tell right now.
Gotcha. So John's got a, a great question. Sorry, I stutter a little bit. Sorry. Um, John's got a great question here. Kind of asking. So I know you do competition shooting and things like that. But do you hunt also and things of that nature? And I'm sure you're a big hockey fan. Everybody's a hockey fan.
Unfortunately, not actually. I'm like
Oh,
one of the few Canadians that does not watch hockey.
oh,
Yeah. In terms of shooting though, yeah, I through and through, I've really just been a planker most of my life. And then in 2017, I got into PRS. I went to Meaford Long Range Steel Challenge in Ontario here for
hmm
my first experience. 120 shooters and targets anywhere from, I think it was 3 to 1,200 yards, and that was my first drop into competitive shooting. And I was shooting my PGW Coyote and 6.5 Creedmoor, and I was hooked after that. Just hitting steel at distance. And so since then, I've done rifleman team challenges. I've done some 22 competitions. They started getting rimfire versions of PRS here as well, just because
hmm
we have a bit of issue with ranges in terms of getting that distance out to 1,000 plus. Even though we're in the prairies and we have no shortage of land, but it's still approved ranges that we can actually have a match on. So with the rimfire versions, we're doing out to 300-400 yards, and that's kind of like the equivalent of about 1,000-1,200 with a
yeah,
6.5 or something like that. So it brings the challenge is still there, but we don't need as long of a range. So really, other than that, I will say I've been hunting, but I was tree stand hunting, and it was kind of uneventful. Um, so I've certainly done a lot of gopher hunting, quote unquote. I don't really think that is considered hunting, but it's to save the cows, you know.
yeah. Guys around, our big problem is where I am. I'm down in Kentucky.
Hmm.
So, a lot of the big problems around here are groundhogs, which are
Yeah.
just an oversized gopher.
Mhm.
Um, well,
Yeah, we got prairie dogs, we got groundhogs, we got it's yeah, there's fields full of them.
yeah. Um, so, uh, Michael, Mike was commenting on how great your products look. Sean's got some
Thank you.
beautiful products over there, man. I I can't even explain how beautiful they are. Maybe PGW will relocate, John says. So, David's got a great question
Mm.
here. Can you guys impeach your elected officials like how we can here?
I don't think so. I think there has to be enough like a vote of non-confidence. And so recently, not even that recently, I think it was a couple of years ago now, but our government decided they had a minority at the time. So it works a little bit different than the states, but they had a minority government, and so they tried to have an election so that they could get a majority. And the conservatives, I don't know how that Republican and I don't remember which one is which. I'm not very political, even though I should be. Um,
The
but
Republicans are like y'all's conservative, and the
okay,
Democrats are like y'all's libertarian. But then we also have third party independent, which is a mix of both conservatism and libertarianism. They call them more moderates.
okay.
Um,
So we do have quite a few parties that will probably never get in, but pretty much what they tried to do was get a majority government, and I think they did at the last election. So now they have even more control, and so there's this stuff that they've been doing recently, which is these order in councils. So they pretty much just put on the books. That's where that's where all our AR-15s went, actually. Just order in council, they put in the books, and so pretty much everybody's AR-15s, they have to sit in the safe. We can't even take them to the range or anything. Like, all you can do is sit there and look at them. And they've been proposing a buyback for a couple years now, and they've extended it, and it still hasn't happened. And it's quite ridiculous, because a lot of these firearms, they're just sitting there unused, and they keep saying that they're going after the criminals, but meanwhile 90% of the guns are smuggled, and 10% are taken from law-abiding citizens, but they're attacking law-abiding citizens. So it's very much just a paper play, and just kind of appeasing people. So seeing working in the industry and seeing firearms firsthand, I deal with firearms every day. They're not as scary as the media likes to portray them.
Well, it's like Trudeau is saying he wants to cap the market on pistols, but he does nothing to stop his armed cronies that are walking around with pistols, multiple pistols on them.
Yeah.
I'm part of law enforcement, so I know for a fact
Mm.
that they're carrying at least two. I'm sorry, but it's the fact of the matter. And they
Yeah.
don't have magazine restrictions and things of that nature.
No. Yeah, that police, law enforcement, military, they don't have any of those restrictions. So it's good, because honestly, the police and law enforcement, or sorry, the LEOs and military, they absolutely should have access to everything there. But it's really like, I don't live in the greatest area, and a couple weeks ago somebody got mugged at gunpoint, and it's like I can't do anything about that. I can't carry, I can't do anything. It's unfortunate, but un- we we don't have much option, really. Like, we don't have Second Amendment, we don't have any of those things.
Do you guys have like concealed carry permits and stuff of that nature? Or is it
Very rarely. It's pretty rare. You have to be like a trapper working up in remote communities or something like that. Like, it's pretty rare. Like, um of course, like, bank transits and stuff like that, like, armed carriers, they're allowed to carry, but civilians not allowed, for the most part.
see, now do you guys have like a Supreme Court or does everything go through Parliament?
Yeah, we have it. Yeah, I think we do. See, I'm not all up and up on that stuff, but I'm pretty sure we do. There's a whole, the way our bills get passed, it's like the whole, it goes up the chain, and then I get, because like, the queen still has something to do with us, so she signs it at the end, and it's like, yeah, it's law now. And
So y'all still answer to the Queen.
yeah, very much.
Okay. So whatever happens in the UK happens there pretty much.
Yeah, so that's kind of scary too, because it's like, you see the way they've gone, where it's, you can't even carry a knife, and it's now people are getting acid attacks in the street, because you can't have anything else. So it's, I think eventually, really, the way at least the liberals here, they want to go, is very much in tune with the UN, and pretty much disarming the population is really what it seems like.
So they've been trying that here, but we have a Second Amendment.
Hmm.
And although we have most popular president in American history that says no, nothing in the Constitution is absolute. If that's the case, then I guess we should stop the 14th Amendment because that's all of our taxes. But
Hmm.
that's besides the point. I'm not advocating for you not to pay your taxes.
Hmm.
However, I'm just saying. um, but
Yeah.
it it's interesting here right now. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, and really, like, because I want to stay 100% legal and conform, and uh, it kind of sucks, because I kind of want to be the one to stand up and be like, you know what, I want to make my voice heard, but at the same time, it's like, if I don't conform, my business may just be shut down, and I'm one guy, so I can't do a whole lot, other than, I am a member of a few different. There's a fantastic organization, the Canadian Coalition for Firearm Rights. They are actually fighting the government in court, and I'm a member of that, and I'm a member of the political party that I believe in. And from there, it's really, I put my money into the organizations that I feel that will do right by me, and so the CCFR is definitely one of them, and I definitely support them.
So is y'all's CCFR a lot like how our Firearms Policy Coalition is here? They sue on the behalf of firearms owners, whether you're a member of that organization or not. That's where all their funding goes to.
Pretty much, yeah, yeah. It's essentially it's just an organization that anybody can fund, whether it be shooting clubs or the individual, and it comes with actually insurance as well. So some fantastic firearm lawyers come on retainer as well with that, and basically we just put our money into a pool and just try and fight the government on one of the bills, Bill C-71, where there was some nonsense passed, and now as well Bill C-21. So um, pretty much just put some money into them, and they're doing what they can. Um, but so far there hasn't been major movement on that, unfortunately.
Gotcha. I didn't know because like everybody just assumes that Canada, you see all this stuff going on that there's just so many restrictions. Next thing it's going to be you can't buy ammunition at the store or anything like that. But you reload also, I'm
Mhm.
assuming. Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Now how are reloading components there? Are y'all struggling to find things?
Struggling, yes. It does not seem to be as bad as in the US though. Like I was looking at some of the prices there, and oh my, people were paying a lot for powder. H-40 350, whew, people were paying a lot for a pound of powder.
Hmm.
Um, it's probably in the neighborhood of a nice Varget, yeah. Probably
We're not
cost you
going
a
to
pretty
go
penny.
into how expensive that is here.
Yeah. So it certainly is more because
That one's
we
even more. I haven't
oh
seen
yeah.
this in 2 years.
Yeah, thankfully I bought two eight pounders of 4350 last year, so I'm okay for this year, but next year I'm going to need some. The price for components has certainly seen an increase. Not as significant as in the US, but we've definitely seen an increase. Even loaded ammunition. Um, I got my first pistols. Actually, I've had my restricted for a long time, but I finally got pistols because of this whole thing with the bill. And I just picked up 1,000 rounds of ammo for, I think it was 450 Canadian. So it's not that bad, 115 grain 9 mil, but
Now are you gonna work up a load development for it with 115s or
For the pistol, I might eventually do maybe 124s or something, because I might do some competitive shooting with that pistol. I'm not too sure. I kind of just got it on a whim because I've been wanting one for so long, and with all these things going on, I'm like I may never be able to get one again. So now's the time. So I ended up buying a Shadow Systems DR920
Mhm.
and kind of a Gucci Glock, and oh, it's nice. I really like it. But yeah, right now I only load for 6.5 Creedmoor. I have the fancy auto trickler setup. Adam McDonald up in Canada here, he designed a nice little unit for reloading for powder trickling and whatnot. And so I use that. And yeah, really right now I just load 6.5. But if I were to do something like 9 mil, I'd probably get Dillon Square Deal or something to automate the process, maybe a turret based press. Cause right now I just have a single stage, and loading 9 mil on a single stage probably wouldn't be the most fun.
Now what press are you using to load everything up on?
Nothing too fancy. The press I'm using is just a standard RCBS rock chucker,
Hmm.
but I did get the Redding dies. I think it's the Type S dies with the different bushings. And really, I just stick to the one bushing after I found a good bushing that works in my chamber.
Hmm.
So I probably didn't need the whole kit, but they're fantastic dies. So
And it's
yeah,
always good to have them just in case. Like if you recut a barrel on your 6.5, I don't know if you're
yeah.
cutting barrels or not. I cut my own barrels.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, if you're cutting your own barrels and stuff like that, um, if you've ever got to change your chambering, like if you want to go to a 6 GT and the bushing that you have for your 6.5 might not be the one for your 6 GT.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's for sure. Like right now, I'm just straight up 6.5 Creedmoor. I built it in 2017. That was actually back at PGW, one of the receivers off the machine that I ran, and I'm like, I'm gonna build a rifle out of this, and that was built up. I think it's put a 26-inch barrel on there, and chambered it up in 6.5 Creedmoor, and I haven't looked back. Like, I see a lot of people going to 6 mils, and there's something to be said about those little laser beams, but man, I can shoot my 6.5 Creedmoor great. So the rifle already outshoots me, so it's like I don't need to go anything crazier than that.
Now, is 6.5 your favorite caliber?
I would say, but that being said, 22 long rifle was my favorite caliber for a long time, because really, for well over a decade, I only shot 22s and shotguns, and that's all I shot. And then I started working at PGW in 2016, and I was like, what am I doing? I don't have a center fire bolt gun. Like, why? And so the year after, I bought one from them, because I was like, I have to have one of these rifles. Every day I'm running bolts in actions that I've machined, and I'm just like, this is amazing. This is amazing. And I ended up going to Cabela's and trying all the different actions on the shelf. And I'm like, this doesn't feel like the shop. And I went back to the shop, felt an action, and I'm like, yep, I'm going to buy one of these.
Now, what action are you using now?
It's actually a PGW Coyote, so it's a non-standard action, but it is based on the Remington 700. So it's a larger profile action, much thicker sidewalls, a larger bolt diameter as well. So a Remington 700 bolt is 700 thou, whereas ours is 750. So a little bit of fancy stuff like helical fluting and whatnot. Really, the rifle was designed for the military. It was kind of the little brother to the PGW Timberwolf, which is a 338 Lapua bolt gun. And so PGW designed the Coyote to kind of fill that void of really, it's primarily sold as 308, but we can chamber it in whatever. And so I chose 6.5 Creedmoor at the time, because that was really the hot stuff. And there's a lot available for reloading back in 2017. So that's what I went for.
Gotcha. Well, have you heard of Pristine Actions out in the BC?
Yes, I
Um,
have.
we've been working on some stuff together with them.
Okay, nice.
So I'm pretty excited for that. I've been dealing with a lot with Dre and all those guys out there, and great group of guys. That that action that they design has got some crazy features with it. I don't know if you've looked at it or not.
I haven't looked in depth into that one yet. No. A lot of my focus has really just been, I actually have developed some firearms, but I haven't looked too much into really revising the bolt gun as much. With back when I worked at PGW, we re-released what PGW coins as the M15, which is really just an Remington 700, but I did some faceting and some contouring to make it very much look like a PGW Coyote. So we released a smaller profile bolt gun that you can just drop into any standard Rem 700 chassis. And then other than that, I've actually I was one of the leads on designing a semi-automatic direct impingement 338 Lapua. So we worked on a project called the PGW Direwolf, which it still hasn't really seen the light of day. We're still waiting for RCMP and ATF classification and all that stuff. So I've worked on some things in terms of firearms, but a lot of my stuff has really been focused on the accessories.
Now, do you guys do with the ATF like how we do in the United States? Or
Yeah,
is it
so we in order, we actually sent one to the US to get classified by the ATF, and I don't know if we ever heard back from them. I think they might still have it. And it's been well over a year now, so probably should check into that. But we have the RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and they kind of act as they kind of, even though they really shouldn't be, they're kind of the head that kind of classifies firearms, and they're the ones who they're kind of like they're our federal police, really. And so they're the ones who decide whether or not it's civilian legal or military only or whatever it may be.
Now, is the 10 millimeter? David's got a question here. Is the 10 millimeter popular in Canada?
I think it is. Being kind of just broaching into the pistols as of about 2 or 3 months ago, I'm not super familiar with what are the most popular calibers. Other than 9mm. 9mm is very popular here. I see it in abundance. I've definitely seen 40 Smith and Wesson. I know a guy at work. He shoots a couple 10 mils. He really likes them. He is an IPSC shooter, and he does a lot of competitive pistol shooting as well. But most of my exposure has really been to bolt guns and higher caliber stuff like that.
Gotcha. Now, do you guys have like IPSC and stuff like that there for pistol competitions, or is it
Yeah,
called IPSC there? Or?
yeah, we have IPSC, we have IDPA. We do have some 3-gun as well. That is seeing some changes with the whole recent issues with the ARs and whatnot. So some of the competitions have made moves over to things like a 1022 in place of an AR or Ruger PCC. So it works, but it's not the same anymore. And there with that too, there are some Canadian companies that are trying to adhere to the government's what they want, and the government is then going and banning what they create to adhere to the law. So it is a struggle right now, but there are competitive lots of competitive shooting sports up here. It's really what I'm seeing a lot more of now is the rimfire stuff. The rimfire
Mhm.
stuff is really picking up huge, because as I mentioned before, with the range, getting out to 300-400 yards is a lot easier. So we see a lot more, and as well, people are a lot more comfortable shooting a 22 for their first rifle, because as I mentioned too, there's not as many firearm owners in Canada. So there's a lot more new firearm owners that are getting into it, and they see this competitive shooting, and they think it's kind of daunting. So they get into the rimfire stuff and they just go whole hog. I've seen people spend 15 plus grand on a rimfire rig, and it's getting pretty crazy.
Gotcha. Now, what's your popular action for rimfire? Is it Voodoo? Is it PGW?
I've seen a lot of voodoos for sure. What else? There's a company up here called Ultimatum. They're based out of BC as well. They have the Ultimatum Deuce. That one's starting to come more and more to market. The Bergara is a big one. I think it's the B14R.
Mhm.
That one's a big one. That one,
That's a great rifle. I
yeah,
love the
it is.
B14 series.
My former boss got one, and I really want one. He put a 1 in 12 twist barrel on there, actually, because that's some of the so 22 is typically 1 in 16, but
Mhm.
there's been some experimentation. One of the barrel manufacturers up here, IBI, International Barrels, they are doing some experimentation with 1 in 12 twist for longer ranges of 22, and it seems
Mhm.
to be working out very well. So,
So
um,
I sped mine up with a 1 in 10, but I've taken my 22 out to 1,000 yards. So for me,
okay.
it's nothing other than, hey, I'm throwing it,
Mhm.
and which is fun. It's great. I love doing it, but um, speeding it up that fast, the stabilization. Now, what 22 ammo are you guys seeing? Are y'all seeing like SK? Are you seeing Lapua?
Yeah,
Um,
yes. We see all those. I shoot primarily actually just SK Standard Plus. It works fantastic. Like, I'm surprised the groups I get out of that.
oh yeah,
Actually right behind me, that's my CZ 455 with a 22-inch barrel, and 3/4 inch at 100 yards, and
yeah.
5-round groups, and I it could probably do better, but that's me doing doing that. So
Now, what's your trigger weight on your CZ? Have you turned it down? Have you left it
yeah.
factory?
That one, I initially had the Timney on it, but I was finding some odd break. It was fluctuating a bit, so I actually put the Yo Dave kit in there, and now it's
Hmm.
sitting at 1.5 pounds, and there's zero creep, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I've got the Tibney Hunter Elite in my rimfire and this one, and it's their new ones that they just dropped. They've been great
Okay.
triggers. But I'm with you on my 22. The Tibney is a little interesting.
Mhm. Yeah, so
Um,
I was noticing some fluctuation by about a 1/4 pound, so I was just like, I think I'll change it, and then the Yo Dave kit was very economical, and it was just a
mhm,
couple shims, and uh, my PGW Coyote actually run a Trigger Tech
mhm.
Diamond in there,
Hmm.
And initially I had it at the same weight as my Trigger Tech, but then sorry, I had the primary in there first. Now I have the diamond, and then I dropped it, I think, to 1.25 now, maybe 1 pound. So
Gotcha.
my 6.5 is a little lighter than my 22, but the 22 itself, it has weights in it. It's a hefty rifle. It's that 1.5 pounds perfect for that rifle.
Now, do you guys have like NRL 22, or is it its own league there?
Yeah. So what
And
we
I'm
have.
guessing vaping is illegal in Canada now too,
Oh
isn't
no.
it?
Oh no.
No.
We have that was one of the things that liberals got in on was cannabis legalization. So all the
Well, not
stoners are.
cannabis. This is just nicotine,
Oh yeah,
like
no, vaping's
vaping.
totally. Yeah, totally
They're
totally
trying to
cool here.
outlaw that here.
Yeah. Yeah, they're not trying yet, but I imagine that will be the next one of the next things.
Well, if we do it, they're gonna follow.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
So in terms of NRL and stuff like that, so we do have Canadian versions of them. Like, of course, we do have PRS, but for 22 stuff, we have CRPS, which is Canadian Rimfire Precision Series. We have ORPS, which is Outlaw Rimfire Precision Series.
mhm.
There's more and more different competition wings that are coming up, and as well within provinces, there's leagues across Canada as well. So there's more and more certainly popping up.
Yeah, because I've seen where you've been sponsoring some matches and stuff like that. As
Mhm.
I don't know if you're going as title sponsor or just sponsorship on the table, but
Yeah,
either way,
not
like
yet.
that stuff soon. Now,
Yeah,
what
soon.
optics are you running? Are you running
Um,
Vortex,
hmm.
Athlon, Leopold?
All my rifles right now, I'm running Vortex on them. My Coyote, I'm running a PST Gen 2. I have a Diamondback Tactical and a Vortex Venom as well. All of them are the like 6 to 24, 5 to 25, the higher mag ones, first focal plane, mil radian. And so
EVR
that's what
7?
I'm running. I think I'm running the EBR2s because I have the older models. Actually, the Venom I think is EBR7, but the Diamondback and the PST I think are EBR2. That being said, I actually have a scope coming next week. It's a newer company in Canada, Apex Optics.
Hmm.
They are apparently made in the same factory as Night Force, and so I have a scope coming from them. I think it's a 4 to 32 or something by 56, first focal plane and mil radian as well. So yeah, I'm first focal plane and mil radian across the board, other than my red dots, of course.
And you guys have to have a license or
Hmm.
permission slip to
Yeah,
buy
so
firearms.
we have a PAL, possession and acquisition license, and that is entails either non-restricted, restricted, or prohibited. Non-restricted and restricted, any civilian can go and get as long as you don't have a history of issues and things like that. You pass the course, you can get your license. Prohibited, those really you can't get. You can only get either grandfathered in, or if you happen to have a firearm that gets banned and they're like, okay, now you have that license, but you can never get another one. So really at this point, I just have my non-restricted and restricted. So that's a general firearms license that allows you, being a PAL, possession and acquisition license, that allows me to purchase firearms. But there's possession only licenses as well for people that say inherit an estate or something like that. But yeah, typically you do require you do require a license in order to purchase a firearm.
Now, do you guys have like mom and pop gun shops like how we have here? Like in the little town I live in, there's three gun shops here. Um, and then you go 20 minutes up the road, there's 15 in that town.
Mm.
Is it like that there, or is it really sparse and spread out?
Yeah, it's definitely not as prevalent. There are certainly mom and pop gun shops. There's a lot of small towns that have their own little shop, and they're usually family run businesses. So it's good to see that, but it's a lot more sporadic than in the US. And of course, we have the big box stores, Cabela's, and all that, but a lot more. Really, we had more, but Cabela's kind of overtook the at least the big box storefronts here.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we're going to start winding it down here. So, how do we contact you if we want to order your products? Like, you've got your website. Um, which is mmwgear.com or mmwgear.ca, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
And then any other ways that we can contact you? I've linked your Instagram and Facebook down below.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, I'm reachable at those links below. My Facebook is at MMW Gear, as well as my Instagram at MMW Gear. I can be reached at Sean, SEAN, at mmwgear.com. That's my direct email address. And of course, you can send a message through my website, and there's a contact page on there. And yeah, any questions, comments, anything like that. Any messages that come through Facebook, that's usually a little faster, just because I of course have it on my phone. So I just I get the messages pop up, and then usually when I have a little bit of downtime, I can answer any questions there.
all right. We have two questions real quick. You guys have a FFL system, like federal firearms license, or is it how does it work there?
So the way that our transfers work, so for example, a non-restricted rifle, let's just use a Ruger 1022 as an example. So now with the new the new laws, pretty much the retailer would take the serial number of the firearm, the purchaser's information, and transfer that firearm. For something like a restricted, say a handgun, it needs to go up to the chief firearms officer of each purchaser's province. And from there, once they have approval of that firearm transfer, then I get the transfer document, and then I'm approved to receive it, and then the seller can ship it to me. So that's for restricted. It's a little bit more hoops to jump through, but non-restricted, pretty much just go into a store and pick one out, and you just get the transfer done right then and there.
All right. And Michael Dunn has another great question. What part of Canada are you from? And
yeah, I am located in Winnipeg, Manitoba, so very much central Canada.
Gotcha. And we're on the same time zone, right?
Yes, yeah,
It's
Central Standard.
8:30.
Yep.
So he's on or my time zone, which is a little different than some of these guys. But if it, yeah. Anyways, but all right. So we'll close it out with one piece of advice, whether it's dad advice, brother advice, uncle advice, cousin advice, husband advice, firearms advice, whatever type of advice, Canadian advice, it doesn't matter. Any type of advice.
Okay.
To close us out with and go from there.
Absolutely. Well, it's kind of, I'd say it's kind of in tandem with a little bit of family and business advice. And I will say one of the biggest things for me is letting go of some control of my business, because I was working a full-time job, running a business, and trying to have a family all at the same time. And it's a lot. So one of the biggest things is just letting go of control of some things. And I started reaching out to a buddy that manufactures parts, and I'm like, hey, can you make these for me? And just kind of taking a step away and not being as not grasping on to every single part of my business has been beneficial, because that's allowed me more time to spend with my family, to spend with my son, to spend with my wife. And it's really boosted my family life, because previously I was all about work and trying to make everything happen so that I could provide a good life for my son. But with that, I was at home less. So I'm trying to balance that right now so that I can figure out a way that I can be home more and I can be with my family more, but then I can still run my business.
Gotcha. Well, that's a great piece of advice, Sean, and I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on here. Sorry we went a little bit over the hour mark, but it was a great
Thank,
conversation. I appreciate
thank,
having you. You guys go visit John's website. There's a discount code streaming across top. BB 2022 saves you 10%, which might just cover your shipping from Canada down here. So you guys be safe, and Sean, I'll catch you on the backside.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Bye.